Night did not arrive the same way it does today. It did not interrupt. It did not announce itself with numbers or alarms. It did not shorten the day or compete with it. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night arrived slowly. Light faded, the air cooled, movement softened, and life followed. There was no moment when day officially ended. There was no decision to stop. There was only the gradual withdrawal of light, and with it, the quiet agreement that activity would release its hold. In these early agricultural societies, time was not divided into hours. There were no schedules to follow, no urgency to resist. Night was not an obstacle, it was a condition. When darkness spread across fields and settlements, it did more than reduce visibility. It reshaped behavior. It brought the outside world to a pause and drew life inward. Work ended not because it was finished, but because it no longer belonged to the dark. This mattered. In a world without artificial light, night imposed a natural limit. It set boundaries without instruction. It protected bodies from exhaustion and minds from constant demand. In Anatolia, where landforms varied between plains, hills, and valleys, night transformed familiar spaces into quiet outlines. The world became smaller. Movement became careful. Homes became centers of life. In Mesopotamia, where heat and labor shaped the day, night offered relief. Darkness cooled the air and loosened the grip of effort. The pace of life slowed, not by choice, but by necessity. Night was not negotiated, it was accepted. This acceptance shaped culture. Without clocks, people did not experience night as lost time. They did not calculate what could have been done. They did not attempt to extend the day beyond its natural limits. There was nothing to gain by resisting darkness. Instead, night created a shared pause. Across villages and settlements, people retreated from fields and public spaces together. Fires were lit gently. Voices softened. Activity narrowed. The world became quiet at the same time. This shared stillness mattered. It created rhythm. It synchronized rest. It allowed communities to move together without coordination. Night did not separate people. It gathered them. In the absence of measurement, time did not feel scarce. Night was not something to hurry through or shorten. It was part of the cycle, as necessary as daylight. Darkness was familiar. It arrived every day. And it always returned. Night also shaped belief. In the dark, the unseen became present. Sounds travelled differently. The sky revealed itself more fully. Stars appeared. Silence deepened. But this was not a night of fear alone. It was a night of awareness. People learned to listen differently after dark, to move less, to observe more. The world required less action and more presence. This shift mattered for how life was understood. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night did not belong to productivity. It belonged to continuity. It allowed life to reset without instruction. Sleep followed naturally, but sleep was not the only purpose of night. Night held rest, reflection, ritual, and silence. It held limits, and those limits protected life. This video is not only about night as atmosphere, it is about night as structure, about how darkness shaped work, belief, home and rest, about how the absence of clocks allowed night to remain intact, and about how early civilizations lived within this rhythm without resisting it. As you listen, there is nothing to follow closely, nothing to remember deliberately. The night described here did not rush, and neither will this story. You are entering a time when darkness arrived gently, and life learned how to slow down with it. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, work did not end because it was completed. It ended because the day released it. There was no external signal to stop. No authority announced the close of labour. No measurement divided effort into acceptable limits. Instead, work ended when the conditions that made it possible slowly disappeared. Light was the first to withdraw. As daylight softened and shadows lengthened, visibility declined. Tasks that depended on sight became uncertain. Movement required caution. Precision was no longer reliable. Continuing to work offered diminishing return. In this world, efficiency was not calculated. It was felt. Fields could not be worked safely in the dark. Tools became dangerous. Paths disappeared. The risk of injury increased. Darkness did not encourage productivity. It discouraged it. This discouragement was not negative. It was protective. In agricultural societies, the body was the primary resource. Injury meant loss of labour, loss of food, and vulnerability. Night reduced risk by enforcing pause. Work ended because continuing would cost more than it would give. In Mesopotamia, where daytime labour often occurred under intense heat, the contrast between day and night was especially clear. Evening marked relief. Darkness cooled the air and loosened the body's strain. The day's effort had reached its natural limit. In Anatolia, varied terrain reinforced the same pattern. Hills, valleys, and uneven ground became hazardous after sunset. Darkness reduced range. The world contracted. This contraction guided behaviour. People did not argue with the night. They adjusted to it. They returned home. They brought work inward, but they did not extend it. The absence of artificial light mattered deeply. Fire and small lamps existed, but they were not powerful enough to transform night into day. They offered warmth and presence, not continuation. Night was not conquered. It was respected. This respect shaped discipline without rules. No one needed to be told to stop working. Everyone understood when effort no longer belonged to the time. Work did not end abruptly. It softened. Tasks slowed. Movements became fewer. The day closed gently. Because work ended naturally, it did not carry resentment. There was no sense of unfinished obligation. Whatever remained would belong to another day. This separation mattered for mental rest. Without deadlines, there was no pressure to push beyond limits. Without clocks, there was no awareness of lost opportunity. Night did not steal time. It returned it. Work ending at night also created predictability. Everyone stopped around the same time. This collective pause synchronized communities. No one was left behind in effort. No one was compelled to continue alone. This synchronization reduced inequality of strain. The strong did not dominate the weak. The fast did not outpace the slow. Darkness equalized. Night set the same boundary for everyone. Importantly, this boundary was not moral. It was practical. Darkness did not judge effort. It simply ended it. This practicality shaped long-term sustainability. Agricultural life required repetition across seasons and years. Burning energy beyond natural limits would shorten that continuity. Stopping was not laziness, it was maintenance. Work ended at night because life needed to continue the next day. This understanding was not abstract. It was learned through experience. Communities observed what happened when effort exceeded light. Injury increased. Fatigue deepened. recovery lengthened. Over time, night became trusted. It marked a reliable transition, a moment when activity released its grip without resistance. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night did not interrupt labor, it completed it. And by completing it gently, night preserved the balance that allowed work to return again with the morning. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, light was not something people controlled, it was something they followed. Daylight did not exist to extend work, it defined where work could happen at all. Light was not a tool to be used, it was a boundary that shaped behavior quietly and consistently. This distinction mattered. Without artificial illumination, capable of transforming night into day, light remained external. People did not bring it with them to overcome darkness. They adapted to its presence and absence. Work belonged to light. Rest belonged to darkness. During the day, visibility allowed precision. Hands could see what they touched. Feet could trust the ground beneath them. Distance could be judged. These conditions made labor possible. As light faded, these conditions withdrew. Evening did not remove light suddenly. It softened it. Colors lost clarity. Edges blurred. Shadows deepened. Tasks that required accuracy became uncertain. This uncertainty acted as instruction. People did not need rules to know when to stop. The environment communicated directly. When light no longer supported effort, effort retreated. Light was not extended artificially to resist this transition. Fires and lamps existed, but they were weak, localized, and precious. Fuel was limited. Light was not wasted to prolong activity. Illumination served presence, not productivity. In homes, light gathered people rather than extended tasks. It marked where life continued inwardly. It did not attempt to restore daylight conditions. This limitation preserved night. In Anatolia, where stone dwellings and thick walls reduced light penetration, interior spaces grew dim quickly after sunset. The architecture itself reinforced the boundary. Light faded and activity followed. In Mesopotamia, where open spaces dominated daytime labor, night closed those spaces definitively. Without light, fields and canals disappeared into darkness. The landscape no longer invited engagement. Light had withdrawn its permission. Importantly, light was not viewed as something to be mastered. There was no expectation that human effort should override natural conditions. Darkness was not a problem to solve. It was a condition to accept. This acceptance shaped discipline. Not discipline imposed from above, but discipline learned through repetition. People internalized the limits set by light. Over time, this created rhythm. Morning brought expansion. Light returned. Activity spread outward. Evening brought contraction. Light narrowed. Life gathered inward. These movements were predictable. They did not require calculation. They were felt. Light also regulated equality. Everyone shared the same illumination. When it faded for all. No one could extend their advantage by carrying the day further than others. This equalizing effect mattered in communal societies. Because light could not be owned, time could not be monopolized. Light's role as boundary also protected attention. Without bright illumination, the mind did not remain alert unnecessarily. Visual stimulation decreased. The nervous system prepared for rest. This transition was gradual and humane. Light did not command, it suggested. As evening deepened, there was no temptation to push forward. Activity slowed naturally. Tasks concluded without urgency. The day did not end in conflict. Light had completed its role. In this world, illumination did not promise control. It offered guidance. It marked possibility and limitation without instruction. Work ended not because someone decided it should, but because light no longer supported it. This quiet authority shaped daily life deeply. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, light was not something people used to extend their reach. It was something they trusted to tell them when to stop. And in trusting that boundary, life remained balanced between effort and rest. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the field was not an abstract place of production. It was a physical environment that shaped the body directly. Soil, sun, wind, and heat were not background conditions. They were active forces that defined how much effort was possible. Human limits were learned in the open. Agricultural labor required sustained physical engagement. Ploughing, planting, harvesting, carrying water, and tending animals demanded strength and endurance. These tasks were performed under the sky, exposed to temperature and weather. Heat played a decisive role. In Mesopotamia, where summer temperatures could become extreme, the body reached its limits quickly. Muscles tired faster, breath shortened, attention weakened. Continuing heavy labor beyond a certain point did not increase output, it increased risk. Heat did not challenge people to overcome it, it instructed them to stop. In Anatolia, although climates varied, the same principle applied. Long hours under the sun drained energy steadily. The body responded with fatigue, slower movement, and reduced coordination. These responses were not ignored. They were signals. Without clocks, there was no fixed expectation of how long work should continue. The body became the measure. When strength declined, tasks shifted or ended. This responsiveness preserved health. Fields taught people their limits daily. Importantly, these limits were not seen as weakness. They were understood as reality. Ignoring them resulted in injury, prolonged fatigue, or illness. Respecting them allowed recovery and continuation. Agricultural life depended on repetition across seasons. A body damaged by overwork could not contribute long-term. Sustainability mattered more than intensity. Heat enforced this sustainability. As the day warmed, work naturally slowed. Movements became deliberate, breaks lengthened, shade became necessary. The field itself demanded moderation. This moderation did not feel imposed. It felt appropriate. Without artificial means to cool the body or extend endurance, adaptation was essential. People learned when to push and when to yield. Yielding was not failure. It was strategy. Heat also synchronized behavior across communities. When temperatures rose, everyone felt it. Fields emptied together. Labor paused collectively. This shared response reinforced social rhythm. No one needed to explain why work stopped. The reason was visible and felt. In this context, night became a necessary partner to the field. Darkness did not merely remove light. It removed heat's dominance. It allowed the body to release accumulated strain. The end of labor at night was therefore not only about visibility, it was about recovery. Fields demanded effort by day and rest by night. The cycle was complete. This balance shaped how people understood time. Time was not a container to fill with work. It was a process that alternated between exertion and restoration. Heat marked the turning point. As evening approached and temperatures fell, the field released its hold. The body no longer needed to resist conditions. Movement eased. Breath deepened. The day's labor settled into the muscles. Without pressure to continue, Fatigue did not accumulate excessively. Sleep later would be deeper and more restorative. This relationship between field, heat, and human limits preserved life. It prevented the transformation of effort into harm. It ensured that work served survival rather than undermining it. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the land did not ask for constant output. It responded to care given within limits. Human labor followed the same principle. Work ended not because time had run out, but because the body had reached its natural boundary. And that boundary was respected. By listening to heat and honoring physical limits, early societies maintained a rhythm that allowed fields to be worked again and again, season after season, without breaking the people who depended on them. As daylight weakened and heat released its grip, the character of work changed. Evening did not mark an end followed by emptiness. It marked a transition. Labor did not disappear. It softened and shifted. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, evening tasks were lighter, slower, and closer to home. They did not extend the day. They helped it close. Fields were left behind. Distance narrowed. Life moved inward. Evening work did not require strength or speed. It required presence. Fires were tended. Tools were set aside and cleaned. Animals were gathered and secured. Water was stored. These tasks were familiar and repetitive. They asked little of the body and nothing of urgency. This mattered. Evening tasks created continuity between effort and rest. They prevented an abrupt stop that might leave the mind unsettled. Instead of collapsing from labor into sleep, people moved gradually from activity into stillness. This gradual descent protected balance. In Anatolia, evening often brought people into enclosed spaces. Stone houses held warmth. Courtyards gathered voices. The day's noise diminished. Movement slowed naturally as light faded from interior spaces. In Mesopotamia, evening offered relief from heat without inviting renewed labor. Although temperatures fell, energy did not return to its morning state. The body had already given what it could. Evening tasks respected this limit. Importantly, these tasks were not optional obligations. They were part of the day's rhythm. They belonged to the time between work and night. No one rushed through them. There was no reason to finish quickly. Darkness would arrive regardless. This certainty removed pressure. Because there were no deadlines, evening tasks did not accumulate stress. Whatever remained undone would be addressed the next day. Evening did not demand completion. It allowed closure. Closure did not require finishing everything. It required letting go. Evening tasks also carried social meaning. People performed them together. Children observed. Elders participated. Conversation occurred quietly. Silence was comfortable. These shared actions reinforced belonging. Evening did not isolate individuals into private fatigue. It gathered them into collective winding down. The repetition of evening tasks also shaped memory. The day was not reviewed consciously. It settled through familiar action. The mind did not need to reflect or plan. This settling mattered for rest later. Evening tasks signaled to the body that effort was complete. Muscles released, breathing slowed, attention narrowed. The environment supported this shift. Light was dimmer, sounds were fewer, activity became contained. Evening did not prepare people for tomorrow. It closed today. This distinction is important. There was no anticipation of the next day's demands. Tomorrow belonged to tomorrow. Evening belonged to now. By allowing the day to close without preparation or anxiety, early societies preserved mental calm. Evening tasks did not extend productivity, they completed participation. Once these tasks were finished, there was nothing more to do. Darkness approached fully. The boundary between day and night became clear. No negotiation followed. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, evening was not a moment to evaluate the day. It was a time to release it. The day ended not with judgment, but with familiarity. Work had been done. Effort had been given. Now the day could rest. And by allowing this natural closure, life prepared itself quietly for night, without instruction, without measurement, and without urgency. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, stopping was rarely an individual act. When work slowed and ended, it did so collectively. The rhythm of the day did not fragment into separate timelines. It gathered people into a shared pause. This shared stopping mattered. Without clocks or schedules, there was no personal timeline to defend. No one measured themselves against an external standard. Activity rose and fell together because conditions were shared. When light faded, it faded for everyone. When heat eased, it eased for all. When night arrived, it arrived universally. This universality synchronized behavior. Fields emptied together. Tools were set down around the same time. Paths leading back to homes filled briefly, then quieted. The day did not scatter people into isolated endings. It drew them inward simultaneously. Collective stopping reduced pressure. No one needed to decide whether it was time to stop. The decision was made by the environment and confirmed by others. Seeing work slow around you removed doubt. There was no fear of falling behind. Stopping did not require justification. In communal societies, this shared rhythm supported fairness. The strong did not extend the day beyond the capacity of the weak. The fast did not continue while others rested. Darkness imposed equality. Night did not negotiate individual ambition. It applied its boundary evenly. In Anatolia, village life reinforced this pattern. Houses clustered closely. Evening activity was visible. When movement slowed in one home, it slowed across the settlement. Silence spread gradually and collectively. In Mesopotamia, larger populations did not break this rhythm. Markets quieted. Public spaces emptied. Work sites closed. The scale was larger, but the pattern remained the same. Collective stopping also shaped emotional experience. Ending the day together reduced isolation. Fatigue was shared, not carried alone. Rest began as a communal act. This shared transition eased the body. Without competition over time, stopping did not feel like loss. There was nothing to gain by continuing alone. Value was not attached to extending effort beyond others. Time did not reward endurance in isolation. Collective stopping also reinforced trust. People relied on one another to observe the same boundaries. This trust reduced anxiety. There was no need to remain alert while others rested. Safety increased when everyone paused together. Night watch, where necessary, was minimal and rotational. It did not define the night. Most people rested fully, knowing that the community had entered stillness together. This shared stillness shaped memory. Days were remembered as collective experiences. Work, rest, and stopping blended into communal narrative. People did not remember what time they stopped. They remembered stopping together. This mattered for long-term cohesion. Time did not separate individuals into competing schedules. It bound them through shared rhythm. Collective stopping also prepared the mind for rest. Seeing others withdraw signaled permission to release attention. The nervous system responded to social cues as much as environmental ones. Silence became contagious. As voices softened and movement decreased, the world felt safe to release. There was no need to stay vigilant when others were no longer active. This social cue deepened rest later. Collective stopping did not eliminate individuality. People still experienced fatigue differently. But the shared boundary allowed variation without conflict. No one needed to prove dedication by ignoring the night. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, time did not divide people into separate endings. It gathered them into one. Stopping together preserved balance. It equalized effort. It softened fatigue. It prepared rest. And by ending the day collectively, early societies ensured that night belonged to everyone equally, unmeasured, uninterrupted, and shared. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, darkness was not an enemy to overcome. It was a condition that protected life by limiting it. When night arrived, it reduced the range of action. Visibility narrowed, movement slowed, ambition quieted. These reductions were not losses. They were safeguards. Darkness imposed boundaries where none needed to be argued. Without artificial light capable of transforming night into day, darkness remained intact. It did not invite activity. It withdrew permission. The world became smaller, and within that smaller world, life became safer. This safety mattered. Agricultural societies depended on physical continuity. Injury, exhaustion, or error could threaten survival. Darkness reduced these risks by preventing overextension. It forced rest without conflict. No one had to choose restraint. Darkness chose it for them. In Anatolia, uneven terrain became invisible after sunset. Hills, stones, and paths dissolved into shadow. Attempting to continue work or travel invited harm. Darkness protected by making risk obvious. In Mesopotamia, darkness cooled the air and quieted labor. The absence of light reduced temptation to continue effort after fatigue had already accumulated. The body was allowed to release strain. Darkness also protected attention. Visual stimulation decreased. The mind no longer needed to process constant input. Awareness softened. The nervous system shifted toward rest. This shift was not deliberate, it was environmental. Darkness reduced decision-making. Without light, there were fewer options. Fewer choices meant less mental strain. The day's complexity did not follow into the night. Life simplified itself. This simplification mattered deeply. It prevented the mind from carrying unresolved tasks forward. There was nothing more to do. Darkness closed the list without negotiation. Protection extended beyond the individual. When everyone rested, communities became quieter and safer. Movement decreased. Noise softened. The environment signaled stillness. This collective quiet reduced threat. Night did not invite intrusion, it discouraged it. Darkness also shaped belief. In the absence of sight, the unseen became present, but this presence was not only feared, it was respected. Darkness reminded people of forces beyond control. This reminder produced humility rather than panic. Rituals and stories acknowledged darkness as part of order, not chaos. Night belonged to the cycle as much as day did. It was not an interruption, it was a necessary phase. Darkness protected the future by preserving the present. By enforcing rest, it allowed recovery. muscles healed, energy returned. The body prepared quietly for the next day's demands. Without darkness, this recovery would be delayed or incomplete. Importantly, darkness did not require enforcement. There were no guards of night, no rules written to ensure rest. The environment itself maintained order. This natural enforcement reduced conflict. People did not argue with night. They accepted it. Acceptance reduced anxiety. Darkness also equalized. Wealth, strength, and skill mattered less when sight was limited. Everyone rested under the same conditions. Time paused evenly. This equality mattered in societies built on cooperation. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, darkness did not threaten life. It preserved it. By narrowing action, it widened continuity. By limiting effort, it extended endurance. By reducing choice, it increased safety. Darkness did not need to be explained. It only needed to arrive, and when it did, life learned to trust it. Work had ended, movement had slowed, voices had softened. Now darkness held the world quietly, not as absence, but as protection, allowing rest to arrive fully, without instruction, without measurement, and without resistance. As night settled over ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, life withdrew from open space. Fields disappeared first. Paths followed. What remained visible was close, familiar, and contained. The house became the center. Entering the house at night was not a sharp transition. It was a gradual return. People did not rush indoors. They followed the fading light naturally, carrying with them the final movements of the day. There was no sense of escape from darkness. There was a sense of shelter. Homes in these early societies were built with night in mind. Thick walls, narrow openings, and inward-facing spaces reduced exposure. As daylight faded, interior spaces retained warmth and calm. Crossing the threshold marked a change in rhythm. Outside, the world had expanded during the day. Inside, space contracted. Movement slowed. Voices softened. The body adjusted almost immediately. This adjustment did not require intention. It was habitual. In Anatolia, stone houses and clustered settlements reinforced this inward turn. Evening movement through the village diminished quickly. Doors closed gently. Interior life replaced public life. In Mesopotamia, mud brick homes offered similar protection. The transition from open courtyards to enclosed rooms marked the beginning of night's order. Activity became quieter, closer, and more deliberate. Entering the house did not end life. It changed its scale. Tools were set aside. Animals were secured nearby. The concerns of the field did not follow indoors. The house separated effort from rest. This separation mattered. Without clocks, the house acted as a temporal marker. Being inside meant the day had released its demands. There was nothing more expected. The threshold did not enforce rules. It offered permission. Inside, light was dim. Firelight or small lamps marked presence rather than illumination. Shadows remained. Darkness was not fully excluded. It was softened. This partial darkness prepared the body for rest. Vision relaxed. Attention narrowed. The environment communicated that intensity was no longer required. Entering the house also reinforced social closeness. People gathered naturally. Proximity increased. Individual movement gave way to shared presence. Night was not faced alone. This shared interior space reduced vigilance. The outside world, now dark and indistinct, no longer demanded response. Safety was felt through enclosure and familiarity. The house held the night quietly. There was no sense of preparing for tomorrow. The act of entering the house closed the day sufficiently. Whatever remained unfinished belonged elsewhere. This release was essential for mental calm. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night did not begin with sleep. It began with withdrawal, withdrawal from distance, withdrawal from effort, withdrawal from exposure. The house was not only shelter from weather or danger, it was shelter from continuation. By drawing life inward, the house allowed night to take its place gently. And within its walls, time slowed without being measured. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, fire did not exist to replace daylight. It was not strong enough, and it was not meant to be. Fire was not illumination, it was presence. After night entered the house, fire marked the center of life quietly. A small flame, embers, or a low burning hearth did not banish darkness. Shadows remained. Corners stayed indistinct. The room was not transformed into day. This mattered. Fire was precious. Fuel required effort to gather and preserve. Because of this, flames were kept modest. Light was localized. It served orientation rather than expansion. The purpose of fire was not to extend activity, it was to soften stillness. In Anatolia, hearths were often placed at the heart of the home. The fire provided warmth and a sense of enclosure. People gathered near it, not to work longer, but to remain together as the day closed. In Mesopotamia, fire played a similar role. In mud brick homes, the glow of a hearth or lamp marked presence without inviting motion. The fire created a boundary of comfort within the dark. Fire did not compete with night, it cooperated with it. Because illumination was limited, attention naturally slowed. The eyes did not scan distant detail. The body did not remain alert. Firelight encouraged stillness. This encouraged rest. Fire also shaped sound. Crackling replaced silence gently. It was a steady, predictable noise that signaled safety. The mind could relax knowing that something familiar was present. Fire was not dramatic. It was constant. Importantly, fire did not organize time. It did not signal hours or phases. It did not indicate when to sleep or wake. It simply existed as long as it was needed. When it dimmed, nothing was lost. Firelight also reinforced closeness. People stayed near one another because light did not reach far. Distance disappeared. Conversations softened. Presence mattered more than action. This closeness was protective. Without bright light, there was no temptation to continue labor. Tasks that required clarity were impossible. Fire ensured that night remained night. This preservation of night protected the body's rhythm. The nervous system received clear signals. Activity had ended. The environment had changed. Fire marked this change without interrupting it. In belief and story, fire often held symbolic meaning. It represented continuity, warmth, and life. But even without symbolism, its practical role remained consistent. Fire did not dominate space, it anchored it. As the night progressed, fire often burned lower. Embers replaced flame. Light dimmed further. This gradual fading mirrored the body's own descent toward rest. There was no urgency to maintain brightness. Darkness was not feared. Fire did not fight it. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, Fire allowed people to remain present without remaining active. It held space gently. It marked safety quietly. It accompanied night without reshaping it. And by remaining small, fire ensured that night could complete its work, drawing life inward, slowing the body, and preparing rest without force or measurement. At night, the interior of the house did not function the same way it did during the day. Space changed its meaning, movement slowed, purpose softened. What had been practical became sufficient. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, homes were not divided into specialized rooms with fixed functions. Interior space was flexible, but night brought order to this flexibility. Night simplified space. During the day, the interior supported activity. Tools were stored, food was prepared, and movement flowed in and out. At night, these possibilities narrowed. The house no longer needed to accommodate work. It needed to hold rest. This shift happened without instruction. As darkness deepened, people naturally gathered into fewer areas of the home. Spaces farther from the hearth or light source receded into shadow. Only what was close remained active. This created a natural organization. The interior did not become empty, it became focused. In Anatolia, stone walls and low ceilings emphasized enclosure. At night, these features reduced echo and movement. Sound was contained. Stillness became comfortable. In Mesopotamia, mud brick homes responded similarly. Courtyards, active during the day, quieted at night. Interior rooms became the center. Space folded inward. This inward folding mattered. It reduced stimulation. The body did not need to respond to multiple environments. Attention rested within a smaller area. The nervous system recognized safety through limitation. Interior order at night did not rely on rules. There were no designated sleeping rooms or enforced positions. Instead, the environment guided behavior. Where light was dimmest, movement stopped. Where warmth was strongest, people gathered. This arrangement did not require planning. It repeated itself nightly. Over time, it became familiar. Familiarity reduced effort. Night order also shaped posture. People sat lower. They reclined. They lay down. Standing and walking became unnecessary. The body followed the logic of the space. This physical shift prepared rest. Interior space also regulated sound. Loud activity felt inappropriate. Voices lowered naturally. Silence was not imposed. It emerged. This quiet did not feel empty. It felt settled. The interior at night held fewer decisions. Where to go, what to do, and how to act became obvious. Complexity dissolved. This reduction mattered deeply. It allowed the mind to release control. Nothing more was expected. Interior order at night was not about discipline. It was about alignment. The house did not enforce rest. It supported it. As the night progressed, space continued to simplify. Light dimmed further. Fire reduced to embers. Only essential presence remained. The house became a single, calm environment. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, interior space at night did not mirror the demands of the day. It transformed to meet the needs of rest. By narrowing possibility, it widened calm. By reducing movement, it increased safety. By simplifying space, it quieted the mind. And within this ordered stillness, the night unfolded gently, without measurement, without instruction, and without resistance. After dark, distance diminished. not because space changed, but because need did. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night naturally drew families closer together. This closeness was not enforced. It emerged from shared conditions: darkness, limited light, and the inward pull of rest. During the day, family members moved independently. Work spread them across fields, courtyards, and communal spaces. At night, these separations dissolved. The house gathered everyone into a smaller circle. Proximity became natural. This closeness served practical purposes. Warmth was shared. Firelight did not reach far, encouraging people to remain near one another. Sound travelled softly, reinforcing presence. But proximity was not only practical, it was stabilizing. In the dark, familiarity mattered. Recognizing voices, breathing, and small movements reduced vigilance. The environment felt known. The body relaxed. Families did not gather to converse actively. Night did not invite storytelling or instruction. Presence alone was sufficient. Sitting together, lying near one another, or simply sharing the same space created reassurance. This reassurance mattered deeply. In Anatolia, extended families often shared enclosed interiors. Night reduced hierarchy. Elders, adults, and children occupied the same softened space. Roles blurred. Everyone entered rest together. In Mesopotamia, households varied in size, but the pattern remained. After dark, family life condensed. The household functioned as a single unit rather than separate individuals. This condensation supported emotional balance. Without clocks, there was no pressure to maintain individual routines. No one needed to stay awake longer or withdraw earlier. Sleep arrived at different moments, but proximity remained. Family members did not isolate themselves for rest. They rested within shared presence. This shared rest reduced fear of night. Darkness did not feel empty or threatening when others were near. The unknown outside the house mattered less than the known inside. Proximity also softened transitions. Children did not experience night as separation from adults. Adults did not withdraw from family life abruptly. The shift into rest happened collectively. This collective transition prepared sleep gently. Night proximity also supported memory and continuity. Being together at the end of each day reinforced belonging. Life did not fragment into isolated endings. The day closed as a family experience. Importantly, this closeness did not require engagement. Silence was comfortable. Movement was minimal. Attention did not need to be directed. Being together was enough. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, family proximity after dark was not about interaction. It was about containment. The family formed a quiet boundary within the larger darkness. Within that boundary, rest felt safe and unforced. Proximity did not accelerate sleep, it allowed it. As night deepened, some slept earlier, others later. But all remained close. No one was left alone in the transition. And within that closeness, the night continued its work, slowing breath, easing the body, and carrying life gently toward rest without measurement or command. At night, the house did not become silent all at once. Sound did not disappear. It changed. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night introduced a different acoustic world. Daytime noise, voices, tools, animals, movement gradually withdrew. What remained was quieter, closer, and more intimate. Sound narrowed. Inside the home, small sounds became noticeable. The crackle of fire, the shifting of bodies, breathing, fabric brushing against skin. These sounds did not interrupt rest. They marked presence. Silence was not complete absence. It was reduction. This reduction altered awareness. With fewer sounds competing for attention, the mind did not need to filter constantly. Alertness softened. Listening became passive rather than active. This mattered for rest. In Anatolia, thick stone walls absorbed sound. Echo diminished. Exterior noise faded quickly after dark. The house became acoustically enclosed. What was heard belonged inside. In Mesopotamia, mud brick structures had a similar effect. Night quieted courtyards and streets. Sound did not travel far. The environment supported containment. This containment reduced vigilance. People did not strain to identify distant noises. They listened only to what was near. Familiar sounds required no interpretation. They reassured rather than alerted. Silence did not signal danger. It signaled settlement. Importantly, this quiet was shared. Everyone experienced the same reduction. There was no contrast between loud and silent spaces. The entire environment softened together. This collective quiet reinforced calm. Night sounds from outside, wind, insects, distant animals, were not intrusive. They were expected. Their regularity reduced uncertainty. The world continued quietly beyond the house, without demanding response. Inside, awareness shifted inward. People became aware of their own bodies. Breath slowed, muscles released, posture changed. These changes did not require intention. They followed the acoustic environment. Reduced sound reduced mental activity. Without clocks, there was no anticipation tied to sound. No alarm to expect. No signal to prepare for. Listening did not imply readiness. It allowed release. Even moments of waking during the night did not disturb this calm. Without knowing the time, awareness did not escalate. Sound remained the same. Silence held. This stability mattered. The house at night did not demand attention. It allowed it to rest. Sound and silence worked together to maintain this state. Silence was not enforced. It emerged. People did not need to lower their voices consciously. Voices softened because the environment invited softness. Loudness felt unnecessary. This natural quiet supported deep rest later. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night awareness did not sharpen. It diffused. Sound did not alert. Silence did not alarm. Together, they created an environment where the mind could let go without fear. The house held these sounds gently, allowing night to unfold without interruption, without measurement, and without urgency, preparing rest through quiet familiarity rather than command. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night did not follow a plan. There were no fixed hours, no expected sequence of actions, no obligation to prepare for sleep in a certain way. Night unfolded through repetition, not scheduling. Evening actions were familiar, but they were not timed. People did not decide when to sleep. Sleep arrived when it did. The night allowed this without resistance. Routines existed, but they were flexible. After entering the house, tending the fire and settling into shared space, there was nothing left to organize. No checklist remained. No future moment required attention. This absence of structure mattered deeply. Without schedules, there was no anticipation. The mind did not calculate how much time remained. The body did not prepare for a fixed transition. Activity simply decreased until it stopped. This gradual slowing protected rest. In Anatolia, night routines followed the environment rather than instruction. As light dimmed and warmth gathered near the hearth, people naturally reclined. Some slept earlier. Others remained awake longer. No hierarchy governed this. In Mesopotamia, similar patterns emerged. Households did not enforce collective sleep. Children, adults, and elders drifted into rest at different moments, but within the same shared space. This drifting mattered. Sleep did not begin abruptly. It arrived quietly, without ceremony. There was no signal that announced it. The body recognized the moment on its own. Without clocks, waking during the night did not cause concern. People did not know how long they had slept or how much night remained. Awareness did not escalate into planning. This preserved calm. Night routines also lacked preparation rituals. There was no emphasis on washing, arranging, or optimizing sleep. Life had already slowed enough. Nothing further was required. The absence of preparation removed pressure. Sleep was not a task to complete successfully. It was a state to enter when ready. Night routines were therefore forgiving. If sleep did not come immediately, nothing was wrong. The environment remained supportive. Darkness did not demand performance. This tolerance mattered. People trusted night to do its work. They did not attempt to manage it. Fire burned low. Silence held. Proximity remained. Routines were not imposed from outside. They emerged from habit. Habit did not require awareness. It repeated itself without thought. This repetition allowed the mind to release control. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night routines did not structure time. They dissolved it. There was no beginning, middle, or end to the night's activities. There was only a gradual withdrawal from action into stillness. This withdrawal allowed rest to deepen naturally. Without schedules, there was no failure to sleep correctly. There was no standard to meet. Night belonged to the body, not the clock. And within this unstructured space, rest arrived gently, carried by darkness, supported by familiarity, and free from measurement or expectation. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, sleep did not require a dedicated room. It required safety, warmth, and familiarity. Sleep spaces were not fixed locations. They were conditions created by night itself. As activity slowed and fire burned lower, the house reorganized naturally. Mats were unrolled. Blankets were shared. Bodies settled where space felt calmest and warmest. There was no single correct place to sleep. Sleep adapted to the house. In Anatolia, enclosed interiors allowed families to rest close together. Stone floors held the day's warmth. Walls blocked wind and sound. Sleep occurred where stillness felt complete. In Mesopotamia, mud brick homes offered similar flexibility. Courtyards emptied. Interior rooms became resting areas. The boundary between waking and sleeping space was thin. This thin boundary mattered. Sleep did not demand separation from others. It occurred within shared presence. Children slept near adults. Elders rested alongside younger family members. Individual rest did not require isolation. This shared rest reduced vigilance. When others slept nearby, the body relaxed more fully. The environment felt monitored without effort. There was no need to remain alert. Safety was collective. Sleep arrived in stages. Some slept earlier, others later. Waking and sleeping overlapped quietly. No one corrected this. There was no expectation of uniformity. This tolerance allowed the body to follow its own rhythm. Without clocks, waking during the night did not create anxiety. Time was not known. Darkness remained consistent. There was no sense of interruption. Sleep was not fragile. It was resilient. Shared rest also reduced loneliness. Night did not separate individuals into solitary experiences. The presence of others softened the transition into unconsciousness. Silence held multiple bodies at once. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, sleep was not a private performance. It was a communal state. The house did not divide sleepers. It gathered them. And within that gathering, rest deepened naturally, without instruction, without expectation, and without concern for duration. At night, the house did more than shelter bodies. It held the night itself. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the house functioned as a boundary between the known and the unknown. Outside, darkness expanded. Inside, darkness softened. The house did not remove night, it moderated it. Walls reduced sound. Openings narrowed vision. Movement outside became irrelevant. The house created a contained world where awareness could rest. This containment mattered deeply. Protection was not only physical, it was psychological. Inside the house, there was nothing to respond to. No task required attention. No distance demanded monitoring. The house ended responsibility. In Anatolia, thick stone construction insulated inhabitants from wind, animals, and temperature shifts. The environment stabilized. The night could pass without disturbance. In Mesopotamia, mud brick walls performed a similar function. They held warmth and quiet. They marked a clear boundary between interior safety and exterior uncertainty. This boundary allowed trust. People trusted the house to hold the night while they slept. There was no need for constant vigilance. Night watch was minimal and exceptional, not defining. The house absorbed uncertainty. Fire burned low. Shadows remained gentle. Darkness did not threaten. It stayed outside the boundary of the walls. This separation allowed the body to release control. Sleep did not require guarding. It unfolded naturally because the environment supported it. The house also preserved continuity. Night did not interrupt life. It passed through it quietly. Morning would return through the same threshold. This predictability mattered. The house did not change with the night. It remained familiar. This familiarity reassured the nervous system. Nothing new needed to be processed. Protection did not come from strength. It came from stability. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the house did not defend against night. It hosted it carefully. By holding darkness at a distance and stillness within, the house allowed rest to deepen fully. Night passed without drama. Sleep arrived without effort. Life paused safely. And within those walls, time did not need to be counted, only endured gently until morning returned. At night, the streets did not sleep, they emptied. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, streets were not places of night activity. They were extensions of the day, and when the day withdrew, so did movement. There was no expectation of nighttime circulation, no commerce, no casual walking, no reason to remain outside. Streets existed to connect work, not to host rest. As darkness deepened, paths lost their function. Without light, distance became uncertain. Orientation required familiarity. Movement invited risk. This risk was understood. People did not avoid the streets out of fear. They avoided them out of irrelevance. At night, the street had nothing to offer. In Anatolia, narrow paths between stone houses disappeared quickly into shadow. Without light, these passages ceased to be useful. The settlement contracted inward. In Mesopotamia, broader streets and open spaces also quieted. Markets closed completely. Public areas dissolved into darkness. The city reduced itself to enclosed spaces. This reduction was not chaotic. It was orderly. Empty streets were a sign that the day had completed its cycle. The absence of movement was expected. It reassured rather than alarmed. No one interpreted stillness as danger. It signaled closure. The street did not need to be guarded actively. Its emptiness was its protection. With no reason to be there, nothing demanded attention. This absence reduced vigilance. Without footsteps or voices, the night outside became predictable. Nothing changed suddenly. The environment stabilized. The street became a neutral space. Occasional movement, an animal, a distant figure, did not disrupt this calm. Such motion was rare and easily noticed. Rarity reduced uncertainty. The absence of traffic also supported sound control. Noise did not travel unpredictably. Silence extended naturally. This silence mattered. Inside the house, people could rest without reacting to external disturbance. The streets did not intrude into interior life. Night outside did not compete with night inside. Streets without movement also reflected social trust. People trusted that others were resting. No one felt compelled to remain alert while others slept. The community entered stillness together. This collective withdrawal reinforced safety. The outside world did not threaten because it was inactive. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the empty street was not abandoned. It was complete. It had fulfilled its role during the day. At night, it rested. And by allowing streets to empty fully, early societies preserved the boundary between activity and rest. The world did not demand presence at all hours. Streets without movement marked the night as a time without obligation, where nothing needed to be done, watched, or corrected. In that emptiness, life inside could slow fully, and rest could deepen without interruption. At night, silence did not mean that life had vanished. It meant that life had settled. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, silence was not interpreted as emptiness. It was understood as a sign that things were in their proper place. Movement had withdrawn, activity had concluded, and nothing was out of alignment. Silence indicated order. During the day, sound marked usefulness. Tools striking stone, voices calling across space, animals moving through streets. These sounds confirmed that work was happening. At night, the absence of these sounds confirmed that work had ended correctly. Silence was expected. This expectation mattered. When silence arrived, it did not provoke alertness. It did not suggest danger or abandonment. It signaled completion. The environment had done what it was meant to do. In Anatolia, the natural landscape reinforced this understanding. After sunset, wind softened, human noise disappeared, and only stable background sounds remained. Silence felt continuous rather than sudden. In Mesopotamia, large settlements experienced a similar transition. Markets closed, communal areas emptied, and the soundscape narrowed. Silence spread evenly, without interruption. This evenness reduced uncertainty. Silence did not hide sudden events. It made them noticeable. Because the background was quiet, any unusual sound stood out clearly. This clarity reduced anxiety. There was no need to scan constantly. Silence also regulated the body. Without auditory stimulation, attention did not remain extended outward. The nervous system relaxed, muscles softened, breath slowed. This response did not require intention. It followed the environment. Importantly, silence did not isolate individuals. Everyone experienced it together. The entire settlement shared the same quiet. This collective silence reinforced trust. No one was acting alone in the dark. Silence also removed social pressure. Without sound, there was no performance to maintain, no conversation to sustain, no interaction to manage. Being silent did not mean withdrawal. It meant permission to stop. This permission was crucial for rest. Silence allowed thoughts to lose urgency. Without external cues, the mind did not rehearse tasks or anticipate demands. Awareness became diffuse rather than focused. Time loosened. Without clocks or signals, silence did not divide the night into segments. It remained consistent. There was no expectation of change. Nothing was supposed to happen. This stability mattered deeply. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, silence was not something to be filled. It was something to remain within. It held the night gently, preventing disturbance without enforcing stillness. Silence did not command. It confirmed. It confirmed that work had ended, that rest was allowed, and that nothing more was required. And within that confirmation, life outside the house could remain quiet, ordered, and undemanding, allowing those inside to rest without vigilance, without interpretation, and without resistance. At night, vigilance existed, but it was minimal. It did not dominate the night. It accompanied it quietly. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, there was no expectation that the entire community should remain alert after dark. Night was not treated as a period requiring constant supervision. It was treated as a time meant for rest. Awareness was selective. When night watch existed, it was limited in scope and duration. It did not involve continuous patrols or active surveillance. One or two individuals remained lightly attentive, often near entry points or elevated positions, listening rather than watching. Their role was not to control the night. It was to notice change. This distinction mattered. Night watch did not interrupt collective rest. It protected it by reducing uncertainty. Knowing that someone remained lightly aware allowed others to release attention fully. Vigilance was shared across time, not concentrated in one night. In Anatolia, small settlements relied on familiarity rather than force. People knew who belonged and who did not. Unusual movement stood out naturally. The environment itself acted as an early warning system. In Mesopotamia, larger populations required slightly more structure, but the principle remained the same. Night watch was calm, routine, and unobtrusive. It did not create tension. It maintained continuity. Vigilance did not mean wakefulness without rest. Those who watched did not stay fully alert for long periods. Attention drifted. Posture relaxed. Listening replaced scanning. Sleep occurred intermittently. This mattered for sustainability. A watcher who remained tense would become ineffective quickly. Minimal vigilance preserved clarity. The night did not exhaust those who guarded it. Importantly, vigilance was not based on fear. It was based on awareness of rarity. Because the night was usually quiet, disturbance was unusual. Unusual events were therefore easy to detect. This predictability reduced anxiety. Night watch did not define the night, it existed at its edges. Most people slept without concern. The presence of minimal vigilance did not intrude into their awareness. They did not listen for signals. They did not wait for sounds. Night was trusted. This trust mattered deeply. Without it, rest would be shallow. Vigilance would spread unnecessarily. Anxiety would replace stillness. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, trust in the night allowed vigilance to remain limited. The night was not hostile territory. It was familiar. Minimal vigilance respected this familiarity. It did not exaggerate threat. It did not turn rest into readiness. Those who remained lightly awake did so without ceremony. Their presence did not create hierarchy. It did not elevate them above others. Vigilance was a role, not an identity. As night progressed, even this light awareness softened. Silence held. Nothing changed. The world remained stable. And within that stability, the community slept, knowing that the night did not require constant defense, only gentle attention. Minimal vigilance allowed rest to remain primary. The night passed quietly, supported rather than supervised, until light returned and awareness expanded naturally once again. At night, the darkness outside the house was never silent. It was familiar. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, animals shaped the soundscape of the night. These sounds were not unexpected interruptions. They were part of the environment's regular rhythm. Dogs shifted in their sleep. Livestock moved quietly. Insects filled the air with steady patterns. Occasionally, a distant animal call crossed the darkness. These sounds did not signal danger. They signaled continuity. People did not listen to identify threat. They listened to confirm normality. Familiar sounds reassured more than silence ever could. Darkness did not hide chaos. It revealed pattern. In Anatolia, animals were integrated into daily life closely. Sheep, goats, and dogs remained near homes at night. Their presence reduced uncertainty. If animals were calm, the night was calm. In Mesopotamia, similar patterns existed. Livestock rested nearby. Dogs remained alert but unagitated. The sounds of animals formed a stable background. This stability mattered. Animal sounds provided reference points. They told people that the world outside continued normally. Nothing unusual was happening. Darkness did not mean absence of life. This knowledge reduced vigilance. People did not imagine unseen danger because the night sounded as it always did. Familiar darkness required no interpretation. Darkness itself was known. The absence of artificial noise mattered deeply. There were no engines, no mechanical hum, no unpredictable sound. What was heard belonged to nature and habit. This predictability soothed the mind. Animal sounds also prevented the mind from filling silence with imagination. The steady presence of life anchored awareness. Darkness felt inhabited rather than empty. This distinction was important. Empty silence invites alertness. Occupied quiet invites rest. Occasional unfamiliar sounds did not escalate anxiety. Because the baseline was stable, difference stood out clearly. Rare disturbance was easy to identify and did not blend into confusion. This clarity reduced fear. Animals also followed the same rhythm as humans. Their activity decreased at night. Movement slowed. Sound softened. The entire environment shifted together. Night did not separate human and animal life. It unified them. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, people trusted the night partly because animals did. Calm animals confirmed safety. Darkness was not hostile territory. It was shared space. As night deepened, animal sounds became fewer but not alarming. Silence increased gradually. Nothing changed suddenly. This gradual reduction allowed awareness to fade without shock. The night outside the house was not unknown. It was remembered. People had grown up with these sounds. They knew their patterns. Darkness did not introduce novelty. It repeated itself. And in that repetition, the mind learned to let go. Animal sounds did not keep people awake. They allowed sleep to arrive naturally. They reminded listeners that life continued quietly beyond the walls, unchanged, stable, and uninterested in disturbance. Within this familiar darkness, rest deepened, supported by sounds that asked for nothing, promised nothing, and simply confirmed that the night was as it should be. Above the settlement, the sky did not disappear at night. It became more present. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night revealed the sky rather than concealing it. Without artificial light, darkness did not obscure the heavens. It clarified them. The sky expanded. As activity withdrew from the ground, attention lifted naturally upward. People did not study the sky deliberately. They noticed it as part of the night's stillness. There was no urgency in looking up. The sky did not offer instruction. It offered continuity. Stars, faint clouds, and the slow movement of the moon reminded people that life extended beyond the settlement. The world did not end at the walls of the house or the edge of the street. This awareness mattered. The sky placed human life within a larger order. Night did not isolate people. It connected them to something wider and constant. In Anatolia, open terrain and elevated landscapes made the sky especially dominant. After sunset, the horizon softened and the heavens filled the visual field. The land receded. The sky remained. In Mesopotamia, flat plains allowed the sky to stretch uninterrupted. Darkness revealed depth rather than emptiness. The night sky felt vast but stable. This stability reduced anxiety. The sky did not change abruptly. Stars followed known paths. The moon moved slowly. Nothing surprised the observer. Because the sky was familiar, it did not provoke thought. It allowed contemplation without demand. People did not count stars. They recognized them. Looking at the sky did not mean measuring time. It meant noticing presence. The heavens existed whether they were observed or not. This indifference was calming. The sky did not require response. It did not invite action. It reminded people that not everything needed engagement. Some things simply remained. Night sky awareness also softened personal concerns. Under the wide sky, individual effort felt smaller. The day's tasks lost urgency. This loss was not discouraging. It was relieving. The sky did not judge success or failure. It remained unchanged regardless of human activity. This constancy allowed the mind to release control. Importantly, the sky was not interpreted as a threat. Darkness above did not imply danger, it implied scale. Human life occupied a small, safe portion of a larger world. This understanding supported rest. As night deepened, attention drifted away from the sky naturally. Eyes tired. Darkness merged sky and land again. Observation ended without effort. The sky did not need to be watched continuously. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the night sky did not demand meaning. It offered perspective. It placed the settlement gently within a larger order, one that did not rush, did not change suddenly, and did not require control. And beneath that sky, life on the ground could rest, knowing that nothing beyond the walls needed attention until morning returned. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, stars were not clocks. They did not divide the night into units. They did not announce deadlines or signal obligation. Stars existed without urgency. People were aware of the stars, but they did not consult them continuously. The sky did not function as a measuring device during the night. It functioned as a stable presence. This distinction mattered. Although stars were known and recognized, they were not used to track hours after dark. Night was not segmented. There was no expectation of progression from one phase to another. The night remained whole. Stars did not tell people how much time had passed or how much remained. They did not create anticipation. They did not encourage planning. This absence of timekeeping allowed rest to deepen. Looking at the stars did not mean staying awake to observe change. The sky moved slowly, almost imperceptibly. Nothing demanded attention. In Anatolia, where skies could be clear and expansive, stars appeared fixed and enduring. Their positions were familiar, but their movement was too subtle to invite calculation during the night. In Mesopotamia, the same stillness applied. The heavens did not rush. They did not mark progress in a way that mattered to rest. Stars did not impose sequence. Importantly, stars were not interpreted as indicators of urgency. Seeing them did not mean that the night was advancing toward an end. There was no sense of counting down toward morning. Without this countdown, awareness softened. The mind did not track time unconsciously. There was no reference point to trigger evaluation. Night passed without being monitored. This mattered deeply for sleep. Waking during the night did not activate concern. Without knowing the hour, the mind did not calculate loss or gain. Darkness remained the same. Stars did not announce change. Rest was not interrupted by awareness of duration. Stars existed as orientation rather than measurement. They confirmed direction, season, and continuity, but not the passing of minutes. This broader orientation did not disturb the night. The sky reminded people that time moved, but not in a way that required attention. Movement existed without demand. This allowed trust. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the stars did not compete with sleep. They accompanied it quietly. They did not ask to be followed or interpreted. They remained distant and indifferent. This indifference was calming. Stars did not care whether people slept or woke. They did not reward vigilance. They did not punish rest. They simply remained. And in remaining unchanged throughout the night, they allowed the mind to release its need to track progress. Night did not have stages to complete. It did not need to be monitored. Under stars that did not measure time, rest could arrive fully, without counting, without anticipation, and without resistance. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the unknown was not something to be conquered. It was something to be acknowledged and kept at a respectful distance. Night carried this unknown gently. Belief did not arise from fear of darkness. It arose from familiarity with limits. People understood that not everything was visible, measurable, or controllable, especially after dark. This understanding shaped respect. The night was not treated as a hostile force. It was treated as a domain with its own order. What could not be seen did not automatically become dangerous. It became simply unseen. This distinction mattered deeply. Rather than filling the darkness with imagined threats, early societies learned to coexist with uncertainty. The unknown was not pursued. It was allowed to remain unknown. Belief systems reflected this restraint. In Anatolia, stories and traditions acknowledged forces beyond human reach, without dramatizing them. The night was not a battlefield between good and evil. It was a phase within a larger cycle. In Mesopotamia, religious thought recognized divine presence in the cosmos, but this presence did not require constant vigilance. The gods governed order, not chaos. Night was part of that order. Respect replaced fear. People did not attempt to interpret every sound or shadow. Familiar darkness did not demand explanation. Only significant change required attention. This selective awareness reduced anxiety. Belief did not encourage nighttime activity. It encouraged withdrawal. Night was not the time for action or decision. It was the time for stillness and trust. Trust did not mean ignorance. It meant acceptance. Acceptance of limits allowed rest. The unknown remained outside the house, beyond the walls, under the sky. It did not intrude into interior life. People did not carry belief into worry. Rituals that acknowledged night did not stimulate alertness. They reinforced continuity. Night followed day. Day would follow night. Nothing needed to be managed in between. This belief in continuity mattered for sleep. Without fear of interruption or loss, the mind released control. Darkness did not threaten identity or safety. Belief did not demand interpretation at night. It allowed suspension. Suspension of meaning created space for rest. People did not need to understand the unknown to live beside it. Respect was sufficient. Distance was sufficient. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, belief did not turn night into mystery. It allowed mystery to remain quiet. The unknown was not an absence of knowledge to be filled. It was a boundary to be honored. And by honoring that boundary, early societies preserved calm, allowing night to pass without speculation, without fear, and without disturbance. The unknown remained where it belonged, outside the circle of attention, beyond the walls of the house, and beneath a sky that did not ask for explanation. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, night was not an interruption of life. It was its continuation. The day did not end abruptly, and the night did not begin as a separate world. One faded into the other without resistance. Activity softened. Awareness narrowed. Life remained present, only quieter. Night did not erase order. It preserved it. What existed during the day did not disappear after sunset. Fields rested. Streets emptied. Homes held their occupants. Animals remained nearby. The sky continued above. Nothing collapsed. This continuity mattered deeply. Because night followed day reliably, it did not provoke fear. There was no sense of entering unknown territory. Night had been experienced countless times before. It repeated itself without surprise. Repetition created trust. Trust allowed withdrawal. People did not stay awake to protect themselves from the night. They rested within it. The absence of artificial light reinforced this continuity. Darkness did not create a new environment. It revealed the existing one more quietly. Night did not ask for vigilance. It allowed release. Silence, animal sounds, still streets, and the steady sky worked together to maintain stability. Each element confirmed that the world remained intact. Nothing required correction. In Anatolia, settlements did not transform at night. They contracted gently. The same paths existed, though unseen. The same homes stood. The same land waited. In Mesopotamia, cities followed the same logic. Large by day, contained by night. The transition was expected and calm. Night did not threaten identity or memory. People did not worry about losing their place in the world while they slept. Morning would return the same environment. This predictability supported deep rest. Importantly, night did not isolate individuals from community. Everyone entered the same phase together. The entire settlement moved into stillness as one. Continuity was shared. Because night was not treated as a problem, it did not become one. There was no struggle against darkness, no attempt to dominate it. Acceptance replaced effort. Night existed within a larger cycle that did not rush. Day returned without demand. Seasons changed slowly. Life continued. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the night was not a test to endure. It was a passage to pass through gently. By allowing night to remain continuous rather than threatening, early societies preserved balance between action and rest, awareness and release, effort and recovery. Night did not challenge life. It carried it. And within that carrying, rest arrived naturally, without instruction, without measurement, and without resistance, completing the cycle that would quietly begin again with the return of light. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, time was not understood as something that moved forward toward a goal. It returned. Days did not accumulate into progress. Seasons did not signal advancement. Life repeated itself through cycles that were expected, remembered, and trusted. This understanding shaped sacred time. Sacred time was not separate from daily life. It was embedded within repetition. What returned regularly gained meaning, not through novelty, but through familiarity. Time did not rush forward. It came back. Night followed day. Day followed night. Ritual followed ritual. Nothing was lost by repetition. Meaning deepened instead. This return created stability. People did not fear missing something important. What mattered would return again. Sacred time did not push life toward improvement. It preserved balance. Repetition was not monotony. It was structure. In both Anatolia and Mesopotamia, what repeated became sacred not because it was rare, but because it endured. Repeated actions confirmed continuity. Rituals were simple. They did not escalate. They did not demand attention. They returned quietly. This quiet return mattered. Repetition created memory without effort. People did not need to record events. They remembered through doing. The sacred was not dramatic. It was reliable. Through repetition, time became recognizable. Familiar patterns reduced anxiety. The future was not unknown. It would resemble the past. Sacred structure did not impose urgency. It allowed rest. Temples did not dominate time. They marked it. In Mesopotamia, temples organized days through presence rather than instruction. Ritual activity followed cycles, not schedules. The temple did not hurry people. In Anatolia, sacred spaces blended into settlements. They did not interrupt daily life. They reinforced rhythm. The temple was not a clock. It was a reminder. Rituals occurred when conditions aligned, not when hours demanded. Sacred rhythm followed the environment. This alignment preserved calm. Night rituals were not spectacles. They were acknowledgements. Rituals at night did not awaken excitement. They softened attention. Fire, silence, repetition, and presence defined them. People did not seek revelation. They sought continuity. These rituals created collective memory, not through narrative, but through shared experience. Memory lived in the body. Night rituals did not interrupt sleep. They prepared it. Sacred time did not amplify emotion. It reduced it. There was no urgency, no intensity, no climax. Sacred calm mirrored natural stillness. This calm mattered deeply. Drama disrupts rest. Calm preserves it. Sacred time respected this. The sacred did not demand attention. It allowed release. Night rituals were quiet enough to disappear into sleep. Night was not a moment. It was a passage. Crossing into night did not require ceremony. It happened naturally. Ritual acknowledged this crossing without stopping it. Night was an in-between state. Sacred time did not begin at night. It passed through it. This understanding allowed night to remain gentle. There were no written schedules for sacred time. Memory did not depend on Girog. People remembered by repetition. What mattered returned often enough to remain present. Forgetting was not feared. It was accepted. What needed to be remembered would return. This trust reduced mental burden. Sacred order did not accelerate life. It slowed it. Time was not something to manage. It unfolded at its own pace. Sacred rhythm aligned with night, rest, and repetition. Nothing needed to be optimized. Order existed without pressure. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, sacred time did not compete with sleep. It supported it. By refusing urgency, sacred order preserved rest, allowing night to pass fully, quietly, and without resistance. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, rest was not something that had to be achieved. It was something that arrived. Night did not instruct the body to sleep. It allowed the body to stop. Without clocks, rest was not measured by duration. No one knew how long they slept, how deeply, or how much remained of the night. Sleep did not need to be successful. It only needed to happen. This absence of measurement mattered deeply. Without knowing the hour, waking during the night did not create concern. Awareness did not escalate into calculation. There was no sense of loss, delay, or urgency. Darkness remained the same before and after waking. Nothing had changed. Because nothing changed, the body returned to rest easily. The mind did not begin working. It did not ask questions. It did not prepare. Night remained whole. In Anatolia, sleep followed the land's rhythm. Bodies rested when effort had ended. There was no separation between physical fatigue and sleep readiness. One flowed naturally into the other. In Mesopotamia, the same principle applied. Heat had withdrawn. Activity had softened. The environment supported rest without instruction. Rest was not scheduled, it was allowed. People did not go to sleep at a specific moment. They reclined. They grew still. Sleep arrived gradually, unevenly, and without ceremony. Some slept earlier, some later. Some woke briefly and slept again. This variation was normal. Without clocks, variation did not become a problem. There was no ideal pattern to follow, no correct timing, no standard to meet. Rest was personal, but not isolated. Bodies slept near one another. Breath synchronized quietly. Movement was minimal. The presence of others reduced vigilance. Sleep did not require solitude, it required safety. The absence of clocks also removed anticipation. People did not think about when they would wake. Morning did not approach as a deadline, it arrived when light returned. Because waking was not planned, sleep was not protected anxiously. There was no effort to get enough rest. Enough was defined by the body. This definition was forgiving. If sleep was shallow, it would deepen later. If it was brief, it would return. Nothing needed correction. Night was not divided into stages. It was not segmented. It did not progress toward completion. It simply existed. This existence supported deep physiological rest. The nervous system did not remain partially alert. Without external signals, vigilance dissolved fully. The body trusted the environment. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, trust in night was learned through repetition. Night passed safely again and again. Rest did not lead to loss. This repetition removed fear. Sleep was not fragile, it was resilient. It returned naturally when allowed. Even dreams did not disturb rest. Without awareness of time, dreams were not interpreted as interruption. They passed through awareness quietly. Night did not ask for interpretation. Rest was not a break from life. It was part of it. The absence of clocks also meant the absence of night anxiety. People did not calculate how much of the night remained. They did not measure their rest against tomorrow's demands. Tomorrow did not exist yet. This separation mattered. Without tomorrow intruding, rest remained complete. The body did not prepare for what was coming. It recovered from what had passed. Recovery was the purpose of night. In this world, rest did not compete with productivity. It was not justified by usefulness. It was necessary because life required continuation. Night honored this requirement. Silence, darkness, proximity, and stillness worked together. None dominated, none instructed. They supported rest quietly. The night did not need to be optimized. As night deepened, awareness faded naturally. Consciousness loosened its hold. Sleep came and went in waves, unnoticed. Eventually, light returned. Morning did not interrupt sleep violently. It arrived gradually. Light reintroduced the world slowly. Awareness expanded without shock. There was no alarm. There was no command. The body woke when conditions changed. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, rest was not something people managed. It was something they trusted. Without clocks, night remained undivided. Without measurement, rest remained whole. Without urgency, sleep remained deep. And within that unmeasured night, life paused fully, restoring strength, quieting the mind, and preparing the body to return gently to the world when light allowed it again. Time did not begin to be measured because people became impatient. It began to be observed more carefully. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, the earliest attempts to measure time did not emerge from a desire to control the day. They emerged from the need to coordinate life gently, without breaking its rhythm. Measurement did not replace natural time. It leaned against it. The first markers of time were not numbers. They were changes. Light shifting across walls. Shadows moving slowly across the ground. The rising and setting of the sun. The return of seasons. These observations did not divide time sharply. They outlined it. People did not seek precision. They sought reliability. Knowing when to plant, when to gather, when to prepare for seasonal change mattered more than knowing how long something lasted. Time was still experienced, not calculated. In Mesopotamia, where large-scale agriculture required coordination, this need became more visible. Irrigation, harvest, and communal labor depended on shared understanding. Observation became more attentive, but not intrusive. The sun's path became a reference, not a ruler. Early shadow markers did not fragment the day. They suggested progression without urgency. Morning, midday, and evening remained broad states rather than exact moments. Measurement remained loose. In Anatolia, similar patterns existed. Seasonal awareness mattered more than daily segmentation. Time was felt through land, weather, and bodily rhythm. These early markers did not apply to night. Night resisted measurement. Darkness erased shadows. The sky moved too slowly to divide hours. Sleep did not respond to markers. Night remained uncounted. This mattered deeply. The attempt to measure time did not invade rest. It respected the boundary between coordination and recovery. What could be measured belonged to activity. What required rest remained untouched. Measurement did not demand attention after dark. Even as calendars began to form, they marked cycles rather than duration. Months returned. Festivals repeated. Sacred days aligned with natural events. Time returned again and again. The idea of dividing time into smaller units did not yet exist as a daily concern. Life did not accelerate. Measurement did not shorten night or extend day. Time was still generous. Importantly, these early measurements did not carry anxiety. They did not create pressure to act faster. They did not introduce urgency into rest. They existed quietly alongside life. People did not watch time pass. They recognized when it changed. This recognition did not alter night routines. Sleep remained unmeasured. Waking remained unplanned. Rest remained complete. Measurement served coordination, not domination. In ancient Anatolia and Mesopotamia, time was not owned by tools. Tools responded to time. The night remained whole. Even as human awareness of time sharpened, the relationship did not become aggressive. Measurement did not erase trust. It did not replace observation. It simply added reference. This balance mattered because measurement did not hurry life. Life did not resist it. The natural rhythm remained intact. Night continued to arrive fully. Rest continued to restore. Time was not broken into pieces. It was outlined gently. Only much later would time become something to chase, divide, and manage. In these early societies, it remained something to live within. The first attempts to measure time did not mark the end of night. They respected its place. And by keeping measurement outside of rest, early civilizations preserved what mattered most: the ability to pause fully, to sleep deeply, and to allow time to pass without being counted. Time did not always move as it does now. For most of human history, it did not hurry forward. It did not divide itself into units. It did not ask to be tracked. It simply unfolded. In the lands of Anatolia and Mesopotamia, time was not something people checked. It was something they noticed. Light changed. Heat softened. Shadows lengthened. The body responded. Nothing needed to be counted for life to continue. As we have seen, early societies did not separate time from experience. They did not remove it from land, sky, or body. They did not abstract it away from daily life. Time lived where life lived. Work ended when light withdrew. Night arrived without instruction. Rest followed without planning. Sleep was not achieved. It was allowed. Rituals did not accelerate time. They slowed attention. Belief did not dramatize night. It respected it. The sky did not announce urgency. It offered scale. Stars did not measure progress. They remained. Even the first attempts to observe time more closely did not break this rhythm. Measurement leaned gently against experience. It did not replace it. Night remained whole. Rest remained unmeasured. What mattered returned again and again. Seasons repeated. Days followed nights. Life continued without needing to be hurried. There was no anxiety about lost time. No pressure to use it well. No fear of wasting it. Time was not something to succeed at. It was something to inhabit. When night arrived, the world did not ask questions. It softened. Silence did not demand meaning. Darkness did not demand explanation. Nothing needed to be solved before rest. And because nothing was required, the body could release fully. Breath slowed. Awareness loosened. The day dissolved without resistance. Morning did not arrive as a command. It returned as light. This relationship with time did not come from philosophy. It came from living within limits, from listening to land, from respecting darkness, from trusting repetition. Time slowed not because people tried to slow it, but because they did not push against it. And even now, traces of that rhythm remain. In the quiet moments before sleep, in the easing of breath, in the body's natural return to stillness. Time remembers how to slow. Nothing is being asked of you now. There is no moment to prepare for, no future to manage, no measurement to complete. The night does not need your attention. It will pass as it always has. And when you no longer listen for time, when you stop tracking it, it loosens its grip. Time slows, not because it has changed, but because you are no longer rushing through it. You are resting within it.